And that's going to be very contentious.
All right, I want to shoot you over. I mean, we'll work that later.
Long minute. The Clewiston City Commission meeting is now called to order. Please join us in the prayer that's given on behalf of the Clewiston Ministerial Association by Reverend Gary McNeely from Greater Friendship Baptist Church in Harlem. Pastor McNeely, thank you for being with us and leading us with prayer.
Maybe you need to annex my street into the city. Little humor, yeah. Shall we pray? Eternal God, our Father, we come this evening. Thank you for the privilege that we have to serve humanity. We pray tonight for these city commissions and the decisions that they make will be in the best interest of the constituencies of the city of Clewiston. And we thank you, God, for giving us the honor to be able to make mindful decisions. We thank you for the country in which we live in and the opportunity we have to be a democratic body, but yet understanding that each person has a right to express themselves. Bless this meeting tonight and each one of these city commissioners in their own special way. We pray now in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any additions, deletions, changes, or approval of the agenda?
No, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Tonight we have the reorganization of the City Commission, designation of mayor and vice mayor by the City Commission per the city charter, which states during the first regular meeting in December of each general election year, the City Commission shall hold an organizational meeting and from their number appoint by majority vote the mayor and vice mayor. Discussion?
If I guess I'll start it off. If Christine would accept, I would be happy to nominate you.
Thank you.
So I'll make a motion for Christine Peterson to be mayor.
Okay, that's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Yeah, this is gonna be, I'll get out of the way. Got us hammered in there. It's all right, I'll go through here. Okay. Changing of the volume. No worries.
Okay, at this point, we will accept nominations. At this point, we'll accept nominations for the position of vice mayor. I can nominate.
You can pass the gavel.
I'll make a nomination for Molly to serve as vice mayor.
I'm not interested, thank you. Won't accept the nomination, thank you.
Okay. Jimmy or Greg, do either of you nominate Greg?
I accept the nomination.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of saying aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. we have a proclamation this evening for presentation of Outstanding Community Service Award for 2020. And it's the Commission's honor to present this proclamation to Mary Ann Martin. So if you would like to come up, Mary Ann, we will.
It's been a coup.
It's been a coup, yes.
It's a coup. It's a coup.
Where do you
Would
want her
like to
at?
come up here and we'll read this for you. This is a proclamation, Outstanding Community Service Award for 2020, presented to Mary Ann Martin. Whereas Mary Ann Martin, owner of Clewiston Marina Incorporated, has demonstrated in many ways her deep and genuine love for America's sweetest town, cherishing its history and actively participating in its future, and is deserving of special recognition. And whereas Mary Ann has shown great devotion to the city by her countless hours of volunteer efforts while participating in many organizations, including as a member of the First United Methodist Church, women involved in supporting the hospital, the Wish Foundation, and the Hendry County Tourism Board. And whereas Mary Ann is passionate about preserving the health of Lake Okeechobee, as evidenced by her service for over 20 years on the South Florida Water Management District Water Resources, Accountability, and Collaboration Board, as a voice to protect this great pond and amazing fishery. And now, therefore, on behalf of all of our citizens, the City of Clewiston City Commission is honored to present the Outstanding Community Service Award for 2020 to Mary Ann Martin, with our heartfelt appreciation and commendation for her service to America's sweetest town, and our gratitude that we shall continue to benefit from her participation in many areas of community service. I'll go down and
All
have
the
a
family,
picture
you want to
with
get all the
Mary Ann.
family up first?
Stuck in on you.
But let them come in, even if they're crying, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, they can come in.
They don't know Meemaw's in here.
Tell them, hey, were you telling Meemaw's in there?
Tell Meemaw's in here.
We're trying.
Then we'll get a picture with the commission with
Yes.
after.
Come on in, come on
up.
in.
By the way, I lied.
Laura, come around here.
Come on up.
Such a great idea to invite
By the way, I
everyone
lied
out,
to
right?
you.
It seemed like it. Come over here.
Listen, there's two other
And
children outside.
we'll come down and do a
Yeah, get them
picture
on.
also.
Get them in here. Come on. Yeah, let's get them in here.
Tell Meemaw wants to get Meemaw's in here.
Oh, are we masking for the smile?
Yeah.
Well, I'm just tickled to death.
We'll always remember it was
I'll leave that to
2020.
y'all.
2020.
I think they ditched you.
All right.
1, 2, 3, cheese. Kiss him, smile. Girls, good.
Can I say something?
Yes, ma'am, by all
I'm
means.
tickled to death. You already surprised me.
I want to go down and have
Sure.
End of the world. This means so much to me. But my love for this lake and this community is beyond talking about. I mean, I could sit here for weeks and tell you what a great town we have, what a great lake, and how many wonderful people we have met to come in from all over the world to just be here in Clewiston and to see this lake. My family has supported me and worked hard. We all work together as a family. It's family owned and operated. And you don't see much of that anymore.
Nope.
And of course, we have our bad days and we have our good days. But hopefully, this next generation of Laura's children will come in and be working with us. I have Reed and Jacob both working with us. Those are Scott's children. And I'm just telling you, I've got the greatest family in the world, the greatest town, and the greatest job. And if it wasn't for Raymond Iglesias, I wouldn't be standing here.
Oh, Raymond.
Raymond is the boat, and he paddles it too.
Mary Ann, if you'd wait a minute, we'd like to
They're
have a
gonna come
picture with
around
all
and
of
get
the
a picture with
commission
all
with
of
you,
them.
And
please.
it's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
You don't have to stay here. You can go after I'm staying.
I gotta work.
Well, when you're right.
Y'all don't mind, I'll join.
Oh, please do.
She's my namesake anyway, my mother's name is Ann.
Yeah, yeah. Gosh. Now we're gonna go this way.
Yeah, you're gonna be in the center. A little bit more.
And act like you like each other.
All right, we'll do it quick, because all this COVID thing. 1, 2, 3, one more. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Mary Ann.
You don't have to stay for the meeting. This is all you had to come for. Just figured that out.
We had to get you here.
Go enjoy the drink, baby.
Thank you so much again.
Eat and run, Mary Ann.
Felt right. Wow. I might take y'all out to dinner.
Here we have a pension overview presentation from Gloria Rosen, who is our pension advisor.
Hello, Mayor, new Mayor. Congratulations, and Commissioners. I can't do this. Can you hear me? All right.
Yeah, there you go.
We have the yellow folder that you've all found. And this year, I'm making it short and sweet, very sweet. The first page you're going to find is number 1, and it has a recount from August 21st, 2013, when we started the plan, up to the your fiscal year 9/30/2020. The next thing I'm going to show you after that is current, and you'll be surprised at the last 2.5 months what has happened in between the actual fiscal and now. So I don't have to be here for the next quarter. All right, going down the line, we took $8,820,000 and change from principal, moved it over to Securian, and between 8/30/13 and 9/30/2020, we put in the contributions of the towns, put in the city, $1,163,000. So the total combined of that was just under 10 million, $9,983,000. Minus withdrawal fees, the fees taken out from 2013 through now of $60,981. Benefits paid to your retirees at this point is $3,562,949. So total contributions less withdrawals is $6,359,000. Going down to the bottom, the ending value at this point is $13,098,098 minus the contributions that the city made in withdrawals. We have a gain of $6,739,000. That's a gain. So from the beginning, when we ended to down. Now look at the next one, which is this green on top. It says Securian, City of Clewiston, and right on top in the corner left, its value as of right now is $14,367,675. And what I did for you is give you an overview of the investments that we have and that we've had all along since we began. We haven't changed anything, so everything is almost the same. But I will tell you that I'm going to be looking at, they've just changed life expectancy charts due to situation as far as the COVID and everything else, and I'm waiting for the actuarial to be done, which I normally would have had by this time, but because of certain changes, major changes, I have to wait. Hopefully I'll have it before the end of the month, the actuarial. So that's why I'm giving you this overview of the $14 million that it's worth right now. So it's an actual gain as of today of $8 million, over $8 million. And then you also have month by month, from the beginning to now, attached to the new figures is all the monthly payouts as well as the fees. Everything is in this, the withdrawals and the monthly payouts, the pension. Any questions?
Percentage-wise, what's the funding of the plan?
Pardon me?
Percentage-wise, how's the fund, how much is the plan funded?
The sheet right here shows you the fund. Do you have it there? It has, in the plan balance is called. Do you have, this should be there.
Percent.
Yeah, so you have about 21% in bonds, and then going down to the bottom in international, you have about 10%, and in the middle of the stocks that are about 70%.
Is that what you were asking, Greg? I think what he's asking is,
Yeah.
you want to clarify?
We have an actuarial evaluation that Sherry Mike can comment on that they do on a regular basis that's reflected in the audit. So you may want to ask that question to her.
We don't have the actuarial for this year as yet. We'll have it in a week. Is that what you're talking about? I'm sorry. That's what I meant. The actuarial will be available hopefully before the end of the year. Because there are so many changes in what they're forecasting in the market, what the state of Florida is allowing you to put in. The maximum rate was 7%. We're checking on that now. And then the census, the age, what's happening?
Changes, it should be well in the green.
Well, we are. Anything else?
If there's no other comments, I'd say, I'd like to say what a great job I think you're doing. I appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
It looks like we've come a long way from when I first sat in this chair, and I'm appreciative of what you do.
Thank you very much.
It's a big job, a big task, a lot of responsibility, and I appreciate that you carry the load.
Now, normally I bring someone in from Minnesota Life, from Securian, but obviously because of the times and what's going on, I couldn't get anybody to come down at this time. Maybe another time when things have lightened up a little.
We know who's boots on the ground.
Pardon me?
We know who's really boots on the ground. So,
Thank you, guys.
What you do.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Gloria.
Thank you, Gloria.
I'll just like to say one thing about Miss Rosen. She's available whenever you need her. I don't think you get that too many places nowadays.
She served the city well. Yes. So we have public comments this evening, and I would like to welcome Mr. Melvin Rosen. He had made a request to come and speak publicly this evening.
Guess I go this way,
God bless you.
Hi, Gloria.
How y'all doing? I'm up here to talk to y'all about the fence at Rudd's Fish House. And my problem is the fence is outside the property line, which is within the survey. In order to put a fence up within the city limits, you have to pull a survey. Unless you already have one, you have to keep your fence within your survey. That fence is nowhere within his survey that the city has. And he's also told me they got a letter from the DOT department, and I was told that he said he could put it on his property. Y'all all aware of that letter? Because Mr. Anderson wrote Mr. Rudd and Mr. Reese regarding the property at US 27 Industrial Canal, FDOT's approach to DOT's property. DOT is okay with the fencing being on the DOT's property line if it does not encroach into FDOT's property. Also, this fence cannot be attached to the bridge. Please let me know if you have any further questions. And then Mr. Reese wrote him back, just to clear, the fence be directly on the property line running north and south direction, with the width of the fence encroaching into your property. And Mr. Anderson wrote him back, no part of the fence shall be on DOT's right of way. It can be adjacent to DOT's property, but not encroach. My point is, they're denying him. He was denied before they tried to get this letter. He went over to get a permit to put it on DOT's property, and he was denied by DOT. Then I guess Travis and him went back, according to this, and emailed back and forth with him, because he gave me the emails trying to get them to go around the permit process, because they told him he'd have to go through a permit, and he denied it. And he told me he felt like the city was trying to push the state and taking responsibility for that fence, and they're not going to do it. And if y'all want his number, I can give it to you, because he said anybody can call him that wants to ask about that, because he's the director over there. And my whole thing is, the fence ain't on his property. He does not own the easement on the canal. There's 20 foot, and there's 18 foot adjacent to Highway 27 is not on his property. They said he was going to get a tax deed to prove it. I pulled his tax deed. They pulled his tax deed. The tax deed matches the survey. It does not show either one of them easements on his property. He shouldn't be able to fence it in. He's fencing it in just to keep us from our boats. He does not own it. He shouldn't be able to do it. And that's where we stand.
Thank you.
I do have more, but I ain't going to be mean. I'll wait and let him talk first.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments this evening? Yes, sir. Please make sure you state your name and your address for the record.
How y'all doing today?
Hey, good.
Some of y'all know me. I don't know how many of you do. My name's LaVon Sherrill. I've been in Clewiston all my life. I'm a veteran. I'm 70 years old now. Been here a long time.
Still fishing.
I'm involved in this fence and this commercial fishing project endeavor down there. We've been basically 3 small businesses been working off of that right of way for a long time. I've been in this since 1977. I've been parking my equipment right there since I think 81. So around 39 to 40 years I've been parking right there. We have nowhere else to go to park or anything. We have to go down there during hurricanes, all hours of the night, and everything else to watch our equipment, to take care of it, and all this. And we can't just put it anywhere. And we really don't have anywhere else to go. So we're kind of in a bad situation right now. But just wanted to tell y'all a little bit about me. I've been around here a long time. I've always loved Clewiston, and I still do. But I don't particularly like what's going on right now. And I hope to spend the rest of my life right here in Clewiston. I got no desire to go nowhere else.
Thank you, Mr. Sherrill. Do we have any other public comments this evening? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if you take a look at the consent agenda.
I have a question to the attorney in regards to the public comments.
Yes, ma'am.
We do have a survey here, and Mr. Rosen has said that the fence is not on the property. It's outside the property. Is that something that you're going to look at on behalf of the city so that we can respond to the commercial fishermen? If it's not on the property and what the permit was given was for the property, I don't know. I couldn't tell from it just said 330 feet, so I wasn't sure.
The survey that's in the backup, I believe it doesn't locate the fence. I believe the fence was drawn on there with pencil.
Oh, I don't know. I just have the survey that was given to us.
What we really need to determine the location of the fence is a survey that shows the location of the fence. I think it's given that a person cannot build a structure unless they're building it on their own property. And it does not appear that FDOT has granted any permission to build anything on their property. They specifically said it needs to be off our right of way. So it either has to be on the property owner's right of way along his property line as shown in the survey, and it has to be as far as the north-south segment is concerned. We previously determined that that portion of the industrial canal is owned by the county. And I haven't seen any permission from the county to put anything within the industrial canal. So it appears that there is an issue with the fence. But I think we need to have a survey done showing exactly where it's located so we can then look at it and see whether the pencil marks are accurate or not.
Okay. And then I have a question because I did ride by the property today in preparation for this meeting, and I noticed that on the west side of the property, it goes all the way over to the other canal, which I believe the city has a right of way through there. And I would think staff probably has given approval to place it there, but according to what I found in the plat book, it's 40-foot right-of-way that's owned by the city of Clewiston. And there is a sign on there. Now, I don't know who the sign belongs to, but it is on the city right-of-way.
I haven't looked at that issue.
Okay, well, I just was, since it was 330 feet, it encompasses from one canal to the other canal. The city does have a right-of-way in there, so I'm just curious about that. Okay, all right, so what's the next step? The survey. Who's going to do the survey, and what do we have to do, Mr. Martin?
Well, my position would be that responsibility would be on the owner to provide it to us to convince whether he has the right to be where the fence is currently located.
Okay, and in the meantime, we've heard from the fishermen and their access to
We
that
have,
property has been lessened.
We had asked meaning the staff, had asked the owner of the property, Mr. Rudd, to roll back or undo the fence on the north-south until this matter could be resolved, and he has yet to do that.
Okay.
So we will continue to pursue getting him to do that.
All right. So you'll supply us with a survey.
And until then, what can we do to prevent any, are we going to enforce that? Because it's clearly they've gained access through the fence and went around, and it's posted no trespassing. We're going to hold off on that?
Yeah, we'll communicate with the owner, and if we have to go to enforcement action, if that becomes necessary, then we'll deal with that. But thus far, he has not refused to do that, but he hasn't done it yet either.
There had to be a survey before the fence was put up.
Exactly, yes.
So y'all
This one
can
we have
resolve this tomorrow.
And that's the one that's in there.
That's
but
2016 is the one we have here.
No,
If you actually look at it, they got another one that he turned in when he did the fence, and he's got it marked. There's a dotted line out there on 27. That's 18 foot outside his property line. I can show you on the survey. I can put
We
my
don't
mouse
we don't
on.
have that survey.
It's 18 foot outside.
yes,
where
that's
it
the
puts
one
up.
you have. That's the only survey we have is the
Okay,
one
that
you
was
have a
dated
copy of.
2016.
But there is no as attorney pointed out, that line is not surveyed or part of the plat. And that's why we don't know exactly where the fence is located on that survey.
The fence marks do appear to be outside of what the survey shows as the property owner's property. I think that's the point that everyone's making. However, we don't really know where the fence is located until we have a surveyor go out there and measure it and put it on the survey. So until we do that, we're just sort of speculating where it is at this point.
okay, just so to be clear, we don't have that information.
The only survey we have, you have a copy of. And it was
Okay, so to
altered.
be clear, we don't have the information he just stated.
Correct.
Okay, so then they need to be able to go to work until this is resolved. So can we make a decision to roll back the fence, or is that code enforcement? Or
We've already done that and informed the owner, asked him to comply, and he has yet to do that. I will say, though, they've been gaining access.
That's what I was asking. We're not going to enforce that whether we
Here's
figure
the
this
thing.
out.
Well, that would
He
be a
just
civil-
admitted the whole fence is not within his property line. They say they don't know exactly where the property line is, but the fence is definitely outside his property line. So regardless, the fence has got to come down, even if he does get another survey for it. So what's the need not to rule the fence comes down now, get his other survey and move it back to his property?
Well, again, Mr. Rosen, again, you've been heard, and we will take appropriate action administratively to deal with this.
Well, the only reason I'm talking to them, because I tried to talk to you, and y'all changed your story. I got it all noted like 10 times on me. One time you tell me it's a partial survey by the bank. I call the bank. That's a lie. Next you tell me it's on
Mr.
DOT
Rosen,
property. That's a lie.
If I could, Mayor, Mr. Rosen, I can debate that with you.
No,
but-
ain't no debating. I'm telling you
But
the truth.
that's
Put it on
you're
the
certainly
Bible, I
entitled
will.
to your opinion, but I haven't, as I told you, I haven't taken a position on this, and I answer to this board, not you.
Oh, you're right, but I don't answer to you either. I'm talking to this board.
Well, you've had your say, and it's
No,
up to
really,
the
I ain't
mayor.
done yet. That's the reason I walked back up
No,
here.
Mr.
That's
Rosen.
all right.
Thank you. Hold on just a minute.
Mayor,
So we're going to get the survey you're going to ask them again for the appropriate survey. We're going to take care of the issue of ingress and egress in the meantime. You've
That's
made
our
that
intention.
request for that.
That's our intention. As long as we get cooperation, if we don't, we'll have to take additional
Then
action.
the city will have to move forward on that. Okay. And so what kind of a time frame are we going to put on getting that survey back?
It's not our responsibility to get
Yeah.
a survey.
Yeah.
Right, he's asking again, the
To
owner
keep the
for that
fence,
survey.
he will need
So-
to comply with that to keep it.
So are we going to put a closed date on that to have that response?
And I don't know how reasonable that will be with the holidays, but we'll certainly see if
And
we
that's
can
something
come
he
to
could
some
work out with you.
conclusion with regard to that.
Mr. Brandenburg,
Yes, Mayor?
that's something they can work out with you.
I can certainly coordinate that as well.
Okay.
I do have one more question. On this, Randy, you said that you had already notified the property owner that the north-south fence had to come down.
Travis has advised him to
So what
allow
timeframe-
access there until this is
What timeframe are we going to
resolved.
have for that? I mean, how quickly should that have already been done? Should that have already been done, or how
Yes.
quickly will it be done? Okay.
It should have.
All right. So how quickly can we move to make sure that gets done so that they have the ingress and egress that they need?
Without taking some more formal action to force it, at this point, we've relied on him doing it. But if he doesn't do anything, then we'll research with the attorney our options to make that happen.
So did we give him a permit to put up the north?
He
side?
received a permit based on what he submitted. But then when we went to do the inspection, there were issues with the location, and that's what we've been grappling with since.
I got a question.
He did not get approval on the inspection for the current location.
What survey did the contractor work off of?
I presume the only one we've seen is
No, I
2016.
haven't had any contact.
I don't know if Travis
Give
had.
us the survey provided by the owner.
Okay,
And that's the 2016.
correct.
Okay. So Mr. Brandenburg, you and Mr. Martin will coordinate on how to move forward and the timeline to be able to get it resolved.
Yes, and with respect to the north-south portion of that fence, we'll contact the property owner, the county, ask them if they've given any permission and if they're okay with the removal of that fence from their property.
Okay. The commission have any other questions, comments, or statements? Okay. Moving on, consent agenda. If you would take a look at that, please. Recommended.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Gardner. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. We have a public hearing, resolution number 2020-86. The history on this is Resolution 2020-86 approves a special assessment for city fire protection services in lieu of ad valorem taxes and the funding mechanism for providing the city's share of the Clewiston Fire Department budget. This matter was discussed by the City Commission during the fiscal year 2020-2021 city budget development process and at the November 16th, 2020 City Commission meeting and the December 7th City Commission workshop. This is a public hearing. Do we have anyone in the public who wishes to address this issue? Resolution number 2020-86, a resolution of the City of Clewiston, Florida, declaring its intent to institute a fire services special assessment pursuant to the uniform method of collecting such assessment set forth in Florida Statute 197.3632, stating the need for such a special assessment non-ad valorem, providing notice to property appraiser, tax collector, and Department of Revenue of the city's intent to use such method, providing for the severability, providing for an effective date. Commissioners, questions? Comments?
we asked for some more information and update, and I know we have some more information in our packet.
And this resolution also mirrors the EMS, correct? We have two that we're talking about this evening.
Yeah.
We have two for looking at special assessments. We have this one for fire, and then we have the EMS we're going to discuss tonight also.
So at what, may I?
Yes, ma'am.
So at what point are we going to talk about the particulars of this MSBU? Does that happen during budget time or after the study comes, or when does that happen?
Special assessment
Yes, sorry.
for the fire.
Yes.
During between now and budget, then we would have to acquire the services to someone to do a study, and as we previously discussed, and then those results would be shared with the commission during the preparation and budget development process, and then formal action would be considered at the end of that process before you adopt the next year's budget. That's sort of the scenario of how I would see it playing out.
I watched the presentation of the Hendry County that the county manager did she made to the Hendry County Board of County Commissioners on their fire discussion workshop. And have you seen this? Either Travis or you? Yeah.
Yeah. What's the date on that one?
February 25th, 2020.
I believe I was in attendance at that meeting because I've seen that report.
So it's a pretty phenomenal evaluation of the fire districts. One of the things that stood out to me was that East County Fire, which I guess our 5 firefighters respond to, is that true? Okay. So West County had a reserve of $750,000, and East County has nothing. And in fact, in 2017, they had a deficit of $600,000.
Correct.
Which, to me, I think that we need to evaluate all of the city of Clewiston's fire services in conjunction with all of those fire districts, because I think we have a problem that there's not good service in mid-county, is what I'm going to call it, because it looks like Clewiston struggles to cover east and LaBelle struggles to cover west, and there's not any real professional fire, I don't mean professional, but they have a hard time recruiting in mid-county, it seems like.
Retention is very difficult.
Right. And that area, Port LaBelle and Montura, is exploding. So I think we really need to get, I don't know if the county did a study already, or is this something that you generated on your own? Because it's pretty in-depth.
Right. So I prepared that myself, and as you all know, the last year I think it was, we did an increase for East Fire MSBU to try to address the deficit. Part of that deficit was some old equipment debt from many years ago, where the county loaned that MSBU some money for a fire truck, and the idea was to pay it back, with any excess in that fund. Well, there was never any excess in that fund, so some of that debt is from there. The county has since transferred some capital dollars to that fund to help pay with that old, because it was a capital purchase, that old fire debt, and so that number I don't think is quite as high as it was. However, to your point, there is a problem. In my opinion, I think everybody can see an East Fire MSBU, and that it's spent more money than it's received in the last few years. Well, part of that problem we're hoping to bring to you in January to address. We are all working on a agreement from the 70s for our ILA, and we have been working very hard with staff, our attorney, your attorney. I believe you're in the process of reviewing it, and Mr. Martin on getting a new agreement. And so I think we're in the final stages of trying, from a staff perspective, putting the final touches on that. And my hope is that it already would have come to you, but I'm hoping it'll come to you in January. In doing that, we're going to update the City of LaBelle as well. So City of Clewiston, City of LaBelle have the same agreement. In the agreement that we have now, it basically calls for a 50-50 split. Well, many years ago, for whatever reason, at a budget hearing and the board approved it, we've been splitting the budget, if you will, by 67%. From the county, and you all have been paying the difference. What we do on the for the City of LaBelle, we do a 3-year or 5-year, rolling average of calls, actual calls, whether they're incorporated or unincorporated. So we're looking to set your budget the same way. The agreement, both agreements call if there's an overage, that we split it accordingly. So over the years, there's been an overage, and so we've had to pay it. So we pay it accordingly at the 67% as we've agreed to do, but the money is not being generated. So that's why we've done an increase. I think it was last year, a year before.
This year.
We did it a couple years ago, and then we did it again this year to address the fiscal part of that. And so with this new agreement, when it comes to you, hopefully you all will approve it, and we'll move forward in a positive direction. We'll be operating within the agreement. We'll have the higher assessment that we've seen. However, our attorney, Mark Lapp, and myself, we've been talking, knowing you all were considering this, knowing that what we're going to talk about in a few minutes with the EMS MSBU. And so what we would like to do, if you all approve this, to move forward with your study and the consultant for the fire, we're very interested in looking at that and looking to see what that looks like and potentially readjusting as needed once that analysis comes out. And I think this would be a great time to do that and work together to make that happen.
One of the reasons this has my attention is because we're being asked to create these two MSBUs, or taxing assessments or whatever. So this got my attention because it looks like this MSBU is not being properly managed. I mean, how can we have such a huge deficit there that's not staring somebody in the face with regard to that? And when I was listening to this discussion, you said you want to come back in front of us in January. To me, this is kind of the cart before the horse, because in this discussion, I heard things like the split, the 50-50 split that's on the record is actually being done off the record at 67%. That those calls are based on, or that split is based on calls, which to me doesn't seem right. When the firefighters respond to, the Clewiston firefighters respond to a fire within Clewiston, it's probably a whole lot less expensive than them to respond to a fire in Montura or wherever else. So the cost allocation to me doesn't seem right. And these are just observations, not being involved. But that, again, why I think we need a study. It was mentioned that LaBelle firefighters receive retirement and East County doesn't. So, and that when LaBelle responds to Felda or wherever their area is, it's a whole lot less further than where Clewiston responds to in Montura. So I say, how do all these things, they don't seem to me to make sense. That's why I think we really need a big study. And not just a city study. I think it needs to be a county-wide study, because the county owes fire protection services to Montura, Pioneer, and Felda. And I'm not sure that they're getting that as good as they should. So I'd like to see the whole picture considered. I understand what an MSBU does and a special assessment does. And to Commissioner Greg Thompson's comment last meeting, why are we doing this? Well, and if it's not broke, why are we trying to fix it? Well, if you scratch hard, you can see it is broke. You can't function with a deficit. My comments are kind of together with the MSBU. I'm less concerned about the city's special assessment, but in my opinion, when you guys talked about this in February, one of the things that was said was we need that study, and I think that that's true. We need that study first, and then let's implement it. I'm not comfortable while you say, yes, we'll implement the MSBU and your millage will go down. That's you, and you're not the one who gets to set that. The commission gets to set it.
But that's on
But
the
I was
EMS.
speaking on the
That's not on
board,
this
not, I wasn't speaking
EMS,
for you.
right.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
I wasn't speaking for your millage rate. I was speaking
No.
for the county millage rate.
Right, but I'm talking about you, Jennifer.
Right.
Don't get to set the EMS one. The
study, if you will, from a benefit perspective, would set a rate. And I was just asked to provide some figures of what that might look like from a millage perspective. So that's all I was doing. I was trying to provide in some context some of the numbers that we were looking at. I was asked to say, okay, how much does EMS cost? What would that maybe look like given current year millage rates? And so that was just some numbers to consider to kind of give you an overall understanding of what we were looking at. But it would be the study, this consultant, if you will, that would come and do a benefit analysis, because of course for assessments you have to prove the legal benefit that someone's paying. So I'm not qualified to do that. And so that's why we would be hiring someone to do that, and for everyone to come back and consider at a later date.
So that's what I wanted. I would really like to see that first. To me,
But let's if we can, let's stay focused on the fire and deal with that, because obviously we need to deal with that. And then when we move into the EMS, we can certainly debate that discussion in terms of the study and the timing. But this one in particular, if we're going to pursue it and we're going to do the study on the fire, which is you bring up some very good points that we have discussed, we in the county and staff level, in terms of the condition of our fire fund, if you will, and the funding. We need to deal with this, and you've received my recommendation on the fire side. So I'd suggest you deal with that one, put that behind us, then transition into the EMS, because they're not connected.
Well, okay.
You can do one without the other.
I thought, but we were going to piggyback.
I understand what Commissioner McGahee's saying. It would make sense to assess the city's special assessment and the East County, at least, MSBU for fire, because we're trying to figure out, we're trying to take it off, the ad valorem tax and put it on a special assessment, and then hopefully lower the ad valorem a little bit. But if the East County's broken,
but the
and then
county
we set
has already.
ours,
I'm sorry.
what's to say that?
Right.
But the county's already done that on the East Fire, and they just increased it this year. And according to Jennifer, previous to that, they had done another change I didn't know about. So they just did that effective with this taxing year. And our anticipation is that's going to generate additional dollars for capital and operations that will go towards, with the county's efforts, eliminating the deficit situation and growing to a point that we hopefully pay as we go with many of our capital needs, and not have to borrow as much as has been done in the past.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
The study sets the rate. What changes? What drives that? Is it calls? Is it you just increase the budget and it follows it? How does that work?
Well, Sherry did a projection for you to show what impact we projected it could have, as Jennifer just explained to her analysis on the EMS side. We did a projection in-house, taking into consideration the 10-year capital plan that we just presented to you during the budget process, particularly the first 5 years of that. And she factored in, if you commit to the capital spending that we anticipate needed, and you anticipate normal inflationary impacts on the operations, she gave you an assessment of what that would do to our city millage rate to lower it. But that is just a projection, because we would have to do this study to determine exactly what it would be, because the burden's on the city to approve that that's equitable and fair under the statutory.
Once that rate is set, the next year.
Next year. It's a year to year. It's a year evaluation. Of course, the assessments will be set. That won't change very often. I mean, you wouldn't do that study for a number of years, I wouldn't anticipate. I know the county may consider redoing theirs on the fire, because it's been, how long, Jennifer? It's been
a while, so we were
many years.
We were looking to up ours as well.
Yeah, and it could be we cost share that effort so that we make it more equitable and less expensive for both.
That's the initial study.
That's on the fire, yes. That's the initial study for the city. It would be updating the county's study, if you will, for fire in the MSBU.
So if the assessments increase, what drives that increase from year to year?
The assessment would be driven by the, you want to comment on that, Jennifer?
Cost increase, you can either increase the assessment rate by looking at it and say, okay, cost of increased X percent, if that's something you want to look at, and then you could look at increasing your rates at a percent. But the idea with an MSBU is, as you have growth, so it's per lot, it's per dwelling, it's per square foot, it's something different than taxable value. So as you have growth and your vacant lots, for example, turn into residential homes or whatever, that rate changes. So the idea is that the growth itself pays at a flat rate, that everybody's paying the same thing for a specific type of home or commercial building or industrial or whatever type of property it is, that it grows naturally that way with the growth, as you have growth.
So annually during the budget process, you would see the results of the projections of the assessment based on the tax, the office and everyone's input as to how many new units you have and so forth. And not unlike our current budget process, but it's just a different basis. So you would see the projections of the county would be looking at the MSBU side, the city would be looking at the city side, special assessment, if you approve going down this path. And then you would get a budget proposal showing the needs of the department, factoring in the capital outlay replacement and so forth, any other changes in operating cost. And then the budget would be determined by this commission and adopted by the deadline before the new fiscal year stops. So that will be an annual process. That won't be disrupted or stopped. That'll just be, you'll have a different basis, one of the factors for considering your revenues.
It sounds like a lot more complicated and cumbersome than what we have now.
Not really. From a budget perspective, it's pretty much the same. Once you set those assessment rates, it's actually...
It's easier.
It may be, but the process is not a lot different than what we currently do in terms of a budget process. It is, I don't know, I haven't done one, so I don't know if we'll see a lot of moving parts changing. Jennifer's got a lot more experience with the current county MSBUs, which are very similar the way you assess to what the city special assessment would be. But
one of my concerns is it makes it a lot easier to increase that. It falsely lowers your ad valorem taxes.
Well, it depends.
It leaves more room to play games with the numbers. You know, if you raise your taxes, you don't have an outcry from the public. If you raise 50 cents or $1 on this, there's not so much.
Well, the only two comments I'd make on that, because I've thought about that, because obviously, one, we're very transparent. We've been very open in our budgeting process as to what drives the expense side of it. I don't see that changing. So I don't think it'll be any easier, because you're still raising what most people perceive as a tax, no matter what we call it. You can call it a special assessment, but most citizens consider all of it taxes. But you'd still be having to adjust that rate either up or down. In the property tax equation, the really confusing part when you're looking at this, and I don't want to get on off on a tangent, but this is a public safety expenditure. It's a very important part of our charge is public safety services, and I tried to relay that to the commission in my remarks. But it is competing in the general fund tax base if you rely on ad valorem with all other services. And somebody's going to be winners and losers in that process. Because if the commission doesn't raise the ad valorem rate, then and your expenses go up in a public safety category, that means you got to cut somewhere else. Now, I'm not saying we can't do that. We've done it for years and we'll continue to do it.
Isn't that how it works everywhere in America?
Not everywhere, because there is a different scale, and many of our peers have recognized that public safety expenditures is a different animal, and it is a primary charge of local government. And I don't know if that's the reason the Florida model has migrated away from property tax for most of our peers and to the special assessment. I'm sure it has something to do with, because that is one of the few options you have available is for public safety. There's just very few others you can actually use it for, as you saw at the last meeting. So I'll stop, and I don't know if Jennifer wants to add to that, but I don't really see it as being any easier, because anytime we tax people or assess people, we have to justify it and should be able to do that.
Just another comment is it compartmentalizes. So we have MSBUs for drainage, lighting, fire, recreation, solid waste. And so it compartmentalizes that service to that fund only. And so the funds go into that fund. It can't be used for any other purpose. It has to stay in that fund. And then your ad valorem, whatever it's, paying over here, it doesn't get jumbled in, if you will, for Mr. Martin's comments, say law enforcement or, some of your other services that you have to fund. And so we MSBUs were created before I ever came to the county. This fire MSBU, honestly, I've been with the county quite a while, and it was always a little bit of a problem. We've been needing to deal with this agreement since probably before I came to work for the county. And so we're here. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to fix it. To Commissioner McGahee's comments, so we do think it is broken. We have increased the assessments. We are looking forward to getting this analysis. We're looking forward to updating our agreement. The agreement doesn't have assessment rates. The agreement is how we operate to make sure to have the proper fiscal controls that we need to have, and so forth. And so when we get the assessment, it'll all come together, and or the study, and we can move forward. Now, from a timing perspective, if you all, as a board, if you're not comfortable with moving forward, what we were trying to do is not wait another year. So this has been going on and going on and going on. And so the way our Florida statutes work is that you have to give notice now in order to be able to do it for 2023, I think is the fiscal year. For next fiscal year. If you don't decide to move forward tonight with, I guess, either one of these ordinances, it would be 2023 before you are able to make the assessment if you so chose. So all we were trying to do was try to not have to wait another year. And worst case scenario, you have your study, you don't like it, you're not comfortable with it, you rescind it, and you don't have to do any of the above. And so then you can have that discussion at that time.
Well, again, we're talking about Clewiston's fire at this point, and that's true as to Clewiston. We have control of that, but the Hendry County one, if we pass it, then it's going to be up to Hendry County to make that decision, not us. So if they don't like it, they can say we're not going to move forward. But if they do like it, there's nothing we're gonna do but say we're along for the ride.
Well, there are two options, and I put that in my recommendation. When we get to the EMS, I can further discuss that with you. But
So
for fire, I recommended it the way I do because you do have options and you're not obligated. But if you choose not to go forward, then we're out of the game. We can't do it.
Well,
And we wouldn't recommend going forward with the study if the board's not going to do it and spend that money.
right. I think we should do the study. If you look at, to me, the most important information that we received is Sherry's analysis that she did, her numbers, which if you look at those increase and decrease numbers, they're not numbers that, where we asked what's going to happen to Miss Jones down the street that owns a $140,000 house. Under this scenario, her bill would increase by $14. So,
yeah.
And right now, if you look at it, she may pay very, very little with regard to fire protection, but she does receive a benefit. That's what they're trying to say, is that, yeah, that those people should help carry. Everyone should help carry the load for fire protection because everyone benefits from that. So we are receiving a benefit whether you live in a $200,000 house or a $100,000 house.
Correct.
Are there any property owners exempt from this?
No.
I
don't think you're talking about on the special assessment.
Right. And the reason the legislature actually passed the statute to allow counties to do this is because counties could not afford to pay on the taxpayers' back the services that they were giving. So that's why this rural economic whatever counties are in this program to help spread it around because they have to find a way to pay for it.
Are churches exempt from this, like they are property tax?
Jennifer, do you know? Do they pay the MSBU?
No, they do not.
Not right now. They do.
They don't pay it.
That'll be one of the factors. Obviously, they'll look at all the who has to pay, and I do not know the answer to that tonight.
They can be assessed, unlike property taxes, correct?
Yeah, there are options.
Yeah, each MSBU could.
And I'm not too sure that they shouldn't be assessed something. They do receive.
They have a
The First Amendment
They have
says
a
otherwise. The First and 14th Amendment says otherwise.
Well, it says that there shouldn't be a crossing of church and state, but that doesn't necessarily mean that.
Well, that's what the assessment's going to show. And I think
you'll
there's
have
even
those
more
options.
latitude in the assessment between properties, commercial, residential. I think on this example that they gave us, I think the assessment will show that, and I'm even pretty convinced we can ask and say, for churches, show us what it will be, it won't be, and then we can make that decision on certain things in the assessment.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, but even if you look at it, so where would churches, are you looking at LaBelle's ordinance? Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, I'm looking
So
at
if
this.
you look at LaBelle's ordinance, what category would they fall under?
Well, I'm looking at the counties there. LaBelle's, I don't know where they would fall under.
That's another thing is that I'm not confident that the county, that the categories are very well done in these statutes or in these ordinances because it looks like there's some things that are not being done properly. Like you can't assess RV.
Again, I think that's why Jennifer's recognized that, and the county is aged. It needs to be updated, and that's another reason to do this collaboratively.
Under this special assessment or MSBU, the commission can decide that's going to be an exempt property. That's going, the county doesn't have to pay. The churches don't have to pay if that's the majority opinion.
As long as we follow the
We get to
statutory
decide.
requirements that are in there, you have some latitude.
Yes.
But you have to follow whatever the statutory and the as Jennifer referenced the rules. We've got to follow those. But other than those limitations, two things I would like to mention on this. One, as I pointed out, this is not the final action. This is the first step. Just want to remind you of that tonight on the fire. This is the first step. and it meets the statutory requirements so that we have the option of considering it for the next fiscal year. It doesn't obligate you to do it, as Jennifer explained. Secondly, if you look at the numbers, and Sherry did a really good job, I want to recognize her for that, of providing that analysis. But if you look at that, her projections would put us in a position next fiscal year when you're doing the budget, and just to use this past year as an example, doesn't mean new board, we'll do it again, but we have to make a determination on whether we're going to consider an increase in the ad valorem rate early on. Our need, as evidenced by the current status of the funding for fire and fire services in East Hendry, as well as the city, does not fully cover our need at this point, our current rates. That's of the money that's going to it. In the county's case, it's an MSBU. In the city's case, it's coming out of the general fund. That's funded primarily by those property tax revenues.
Needs for what? Personnel, or needs for what? Does not cover our needs for what?
To meet our operating needs and our projected, now approved 10-year capital needs. So to improve that situation and adequately cover those, we will most likely be forced to look at an ad valorem rate increase. Now, the problem with that, as I pointed out, is you're balancing a whole bucket of things that you're doing with that money versus whether to raise them or not. In this case, you can analyze the needs similar to what we did with our enterprise funds with the water, sewer, electric, and solid waste. You looked at the individual need of that critical service, and you made a determination on whether the rates needed to be adjusted. And you chose to accept those recommendations and act. This, I would see, envisioning it, you will take that review of the fire operations and determine a special assessment that meets the need that you determine based on our projections for capital as well as operating going forward. And that's really the biggest difference I would see in it, going back to earlier discussion. So I would highly recommend you preserve your options and see how that plays out. Otherwise, I just don't see a good outcome if the board does as I want to do, trying to hold the line on as many things as we can, particularly property taxes, because that is such a lightning rod item that you're faced with every year.
That was my point. It definitely is easier to raise an assessment than it is.
In that regard, I would agree with you.
And it falsely lowers the ad valorem taxes, where you make it a little comfortable, and you start raising them up. Then you have the same ad valorem taxes and assessment.
And if
you get back,
but it's
down the line, you're paying.
There's no doubt that could go that way. Although you're not doing it in a vacuum, you're going to be aware of both. But you're doing it based on the need of this critical emergency service versus the whole bucket of things where there's going to be winners and losers, but there's still going to be a lot in that bucket. No, don't get me wrong. And as you look at the taxes, going back to the point that Commissioner McGahee made earlier, if you look at the cost of providing service, this has been a healthy exercise for me on that, because all of the things we're paying for out of our general fund, and there's a lot, you have a disproportionate burden on that under the ad valorem method on the higher valued properties. And right, wrong, or indifferent, that's just a reality. This change is not going to appreciably impact that. Instead of $1,000 on one of those examples, it may be $950 or $60 per year, and it changes the lower end of the spectrum on a lower valued property a little bit. But you're not greatly altering that. You're not going to reduce the higher valued properties by, I think it's 6% instead of 50% or something like that. That would be an appreciable change. So I'll stop and let y'all debate it.
So two things. One, I think he makes a great point, and it's one of my concerns as well. We may be focused on it for the near future, but I guarantee you that the commissioners that are sitting at the county right now are not focused on, oh, well, we got those MSBUs down there that are also pulling into this millage rate when they consider those millage rates. So I think it's a legitimate point. Two, I want to see the study, because when I look at East County Fire, I looked at the two over $10 million assessments. One is the mill. They pay $1,000 for fire. That seems strange to me. And there's a high dollar where the weekly area was that got developed. They pay $1,000 or somewhere around there for fire. That doesn't seem proportionally right to me. So
It isn't.
I want to see that study's going to say, okay, we're doing this proportionately right, because that doesn't seem right. Okay.
Good observation.
So Jennifer, you mentioned that when we do our set analysis, that you're going to look at East County as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's all part of this whole conversation we're having.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Part of the reason to move
And
forward.
and it needs to be looked at because our capital needs at the Clewiston Fire Department, I mean, we need all new air packs right now, pretty much all new. And those are $8,000, $10,000, $12,000 a piece. I mean, that equipment, and you don't have a choice. Once it gets whatever it is, 5 years old or 3 years old, you have to replace it. You can't even repair it. You have to buy a new one. And as you guys know, everything's going up. So you almost have to do this study when we do this study, because you're going to be paying 2/3 of it or something,
absolutely,
whatever
yes,
the new
we
agreement
need
is.
to all be on the same page, and it's time.
So
It's past
that's-
time to do it, so it needs to be done.
What's the projected cost of this study?
I've heard less than $20,000 is what I've heard. That was the one that the city attorney sent out from Glades. I think somebody told me it was quite a bit under that, 12,
I think it was like 12 or 14,000 if I remember looking,
13,000.
yeah.
So I'm anticipating it'll be somewhere in that realm. Now, if the county's doing something and we're doing something, obviously collectively it may be more than that, but our shared cost hopefully would be in that realm.
And where would that be coming from?
Hadn't looked at it, but I assume we would appropriate either out of our contingency or
Our contingency wasn't emptied after the garbage truck.
no. Well, one good thing, and I mentioned it since Commissioner Pittman just mentioned about the air packs. Thank goodness our partners are sharing their CARES dollars and our reimbursements for that. We're going to be recommending funding that air pack item out of that, which helps the total picture. But certainly that's going to free up some money that we should be able to appropriate for this particular item.
That wouldn't come out from another department.
No, not likely. Most likely it would be our contingency appropriation for unexpected expenditures.
Any other questions from the commission? Any comments?
If the public has any comments.
The public wish to address?
I think
Public hearing, you need to open it up for public comment.
At this time, we will open it for public comments. If you wish to address the issue, please come up to the microphone and state your name and your address. Having no one approach, no public comments, we will close the opportunity for public comments at this time. Oh, Mr. Bataille, would you approach the mic, please?
I can ask about things I don't know much about, especially when you do it.
Name and address, sir.
There's been some kind of deficit, which has to do with cost, and personnel is a lot of cost usually. Are we rubbing up against people? And there's apparently been a lot of loose approvals over the years. I mean, I can see talking about going back to Bo Pelham and the people back then who probably just got whatever they needed, or something like that. Are these guys, what I'm going to is, are these guys accustomed to having somebody take care of them? Because you might run into ruffled feathers, I imagine, and firefighters are hard to come by. You know, that's why we did it, I think. It's all your fault. No, I'm only kidding. You haven't talked at all about personnel people expectations and what they pull down every week from running out to every alarm that goes off.
If I could comment on that after Mr.
I don't know where I'm going
finishes.
with that at all.
Okay.
Except that there's a lot of firefighters out there who expect to be paid.
Well, we are very blessed to have the volunteers that we do, but they do receive some compensation. And we did make some improvements in collaboration with the county this year to add additional benefit that was at the request of the volunteers' representation. And I'm very pleased that that was incorporated into our current year budget, and the county's support on that was critical. But we also know that in the future, a lot could change in this regard. At some point in time, there may be a need for full-time paid personnel in this service area. That's been a trend across the country. But at this point, we're blessed enough with volunteers, and that is the reason our overall fire budget is much lower than our peers that have had the transition to paid people. So your point's well taken. That's factored into this, is enhancing the benefits to hopefully hang on to the volunteers a number of years into the future. Thank you.
Anything from the commission? Anything further? I'll read the resolution one more time. A resolution of the City of Clewiston, Florida, declaring its intent to institute a fire services special assessment pursuant to the uniform method of collecting such assessment set forth in Florida Statute 197.3632, stating the need for such a special assessment non ad valorem, providing notice to property appraiser, tax collector, and Department of Revenue of the city's intent to use such method, providing for severability, providing for an effective date. The recommended motion is to approve Resolution 2020-86. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Pittman, second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner McGahey. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Show that one dissenting, that is Commissioner Thompson. 4-1. The next agenda item is ordinance 2020-06. The background and history is ordinance number 2020-06 consents to Hendry County, Florida, establishing a municipal services benefit unit known as the Emergency Medical Services Municipal Services Benefit Unit to provide emergency medical services within the boundaries of Hendry County. This matter was discussed by the City Commission at the November 16th, 2020 City Commission meeting and the December 7th, 2020 City Commission workshop. There's been more information included in our packets so that our conversations could move forward. Does the Commission have any comments, questions?
My only comment is just, I'm going to reiterate that I'd rather see the study first and then have this consideration before us. I know it's going to delay you, but I'm not comfortable otherwise.
And again, we have Jennifer Davis, the County Administrator, who's here to answer any questions that you may have.
I would just make a comment that depending on your action tonight, whether you approve, if you don't approve it, then I would just like to know if you all would like to consider it, because we don't want to spend money on a study if you all aren't interested in moving forward. So that was another piece of this that we wanted to get your buy-in, if you will, because we're anticipating the study to cost somewhere maybe around $30,000 or so. We don't have that final cost, so we don't want to waste taxpayers' dollars and time and so forth. If you're not interested in hearing this time next year.
Jennifer, I have some questions for you, if it's okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you haven't hired the consultant yet?
No,
so,
ma'am.
Okay. All right. And for us, there's not a January 1st deadline, obviously. What's our deadline as far as us having to make
County's deadline is March.
So according to Florida statutes, it was December, unless you get the tax collector and property appraiser's permission to postpone it no later than March.
Okay.
So we need some action now, because I think you have to have two
Yeah, this
hearings.
would be a first reading, so the final action couldn't occur till probably January 25th.
And Jennifer, I guess my question is, on the EMS, I know I saw that, I guess I didn't realize that this was the study that we have here is probably from the one in February 25th.
It was at the same meeting.
Same meeting?
Right,
Okay.
right.
All right. And then, so I guess my concern is, I know we have ambulances here in town. A lot of times I'm seeing them, they're headed outside the city limits. They're not within the city of Clewiston. I don't even know how many calls we have in the city of Clewiston right now and what impact that should have compared to where the majority of the calls are in Eastern Hendry County. Is it going to be the same amount, or is it going to be a different amount? How is it going to be fair and equitable? And I guess because I know that most people live in town, if they have an emergency, they get in the car and go straight to the hospital. Right. And I realize that. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people who don't live within the city limits don't have that benefit. And I'm just trying to, and I know we all pay taxes, and some say, well, we got to drive into the hospital. So I know that there's both sides to this story. I just want to make sure it's fair and equitable as we look at it for the city of Clewiston taxpayers. And so how do we make sure that at the end of the day, if we consent tonight or if we consent in January and we say, wait a minute, we're being assessed, the consultant says you guys need to be assessed this per property, mm-hmm. but it's the same as someplace else, let's say, mm-hmm. Or even across the whole county, everybody pays the same amount. But I know that some of the ambulances are in town some of the day, some of them are outside the city some of the day, and I don't know what happens on the west side of the county. So I don't know how we measure what we're paying for as fair and equitable to the citizens of Clewiston, especially when it comes to taxes. So, and then I noticed that I know what you have here in the cost for here per call is different, of course, than what you guys have approved for, I guess, ambulance rates for transportation, which is a little bit different. So I'm like, it's lower inside the county, but when they transport out, it's higher because of this company. And I know that probably a lot of the costs in medical are going to go up. So how much of a burden is that going to be within the city compared to outside the city? And I know I'm asking these questions, but I know we don't have the answer tonight.
And that's why we
don't
need
have
the study.
Right. And I just think for the county's perspective, I think it needs to be done irregardless of what the final outcome is for us for tonight or for January. I mean, we need to know what the cost of our EMS is for the taxpayers of Hendry County.
Right. And so EMS is a little different than the fire because you have the east and the west boundary lines basically for fire, and EMS is countywide. And so you have one department basically serving the entire county, no matter if they're incorporated or unincorporated. When they call 911, they call for an ambulance, they're going to get, Hendry County EMS. And so that makes it a little different than the fire discussion, of course. But from a legal perspective, the cities have to opt in order for us, the county, to consider a EMS MSBU. And so we can't, so for example, you all decide, nope, not going to do it tonight, and I don't want to do it ever. For example, the county cannot enter into a countywide EMS MSBU. Because it just doesn't work that way. So that's a little bit of the difference between the fire and the EMS. And I don't know, you have very good questions, and that's the reason we need the study done, because you have to be able to prove a legal benefit in order to assess the assessment and to be able to levy that tax.
Okay, and I have a question about that, because I know that Mark is saying in this email that y'all shared with us that he's saying that he prefers, or he would like for the cities, and I don't know if that's his legal opinion that you guys can't move forward without us saying we would like to consider it, or if that's the actual legal requirement.
You have to adopt an ordinance prior to their actual assessment. And consent to it.
Okay, but not for them to do a study.
No, you do not have to consent for them to do a study. Okay. And the study, could be funded all by them. It could be funded jointly by several parties.
Okay. And the CARES Act won't fund any of this is all about health care. Is there any way that the CARES Act funding, either what we have now or what we'll have in the future?
Right.
be able to fund this?
It possibly, you know, with the board approval, I think we could possibly do that. We weren't looking necessarily to ask you to pay for. That wasn't something we were looking to do. We were planning on funding it ourselves for the EMS study.
It was just a time strategy for you guys.
It's just a time. And so, of course, COVID happened. Nobody could have foreseen this. In a perfect world, we would have already had the study done, and we would be coming before you now with the study results. And so we were just trying to not have to wait another year because of, everything that has happened with COVID and not being able to get things done as timely as we would have liked. And so that's really all we're asking, is the opportunity to be able to potentially make this assessment happen for next fiscal year and move forward with the study. And if not, we could move forward with the study, but the soonest we could do it would go for fiscal year 2023. And so we're just trying to, I don't disagree with many of the comments you've made for fire and EMS. That's why we're here. That's why I'm here. And Randy and I have been working really hard because we recognize, that that needs to be tended to. It's kind of gone on, for a period of time, and everything needs to be looked at. It needs to be refreshed. It needs to be proper so we can all move forward properly. And so that's what we're trying to do.
So is there any way we can't opt out? Just say we move forward and pass everything we're in then regardless.
For 1 year.
You're in unless you adopt an ordinance and transmit it to the county prior to May 1st, saying you're out. So essentially, you'd have to make that decision in April, before April, that you were in or out, if you go forward with this and adopt it on January 25th.
Otherwise, it'd be the following year, May 1. And that's what I anticipate you do, because we wouldn't even have all the answers probably by May 1 that you would need to know the impact on the budget, the county's change in the ad valorem rates, all of those answers. As a practical matter, the way I would see it is you're more likely obligated for 1 year, and then you do go through the process with proper notice to opt out in future years.
And of course, I can't speak for the board. I can't. There are 5 of them, just like there are 5 of you. But I would not think that if you all were adamantly against it for the information that is received and you expressed, that opinion as a board, to our board, that, we don't, the last thing we want to do is create an MSBU for it just to be rescinded the following year, because that fluctuates our ad valorem up and down and creates a big, a lot of confusion for our taxpayers and for our organizations as a whole. So, those results are going to be looked at. We're not going to do it in a vacuum. We're going to ask for your input and ask for your opinion, and all of those things will be considered before our board makes their decision.
And that was the comment I put in the memo, is the city would be able to monitor that process and provide input to the county during the public hearing process, which would be September, most likely?
I think it would be in the summer.
August, or whenever. Right. Whenever the county held that public hearing, we could take a collective opinion of the board to the county. And before because they're not obligated to adopt it, the same would apply here as we were talking about the city's chances on the EMS of fire special assessment. You're not obligated to approve it next October, for effective next October, nor would the county be in this item.
Commissioner McGeoghan.
Jennifer, I just have one more question on the study. If you've looked at it, what kind of time frame do you think, if it's approved in January by the Clewiston and LaBelle, what are we looking as a time frame of when that assessment or that study would be completed?
I'm hoping we would receive it by May, sometime in May, and prior to our summer budget workshops. Okay. Not
before May 1st.
Yeah, it would be nice, but I can't say for sure.
So there's nothing urgent about this, and I think we all are in agreement, or I mean, even in February, except for COVID, you would have already done the study.
Mm-hmm.
There's a right way to do this, and that's to get the study and then make your decision based on information that we receive in that study. It's not some critical emergency type situation. Let's do it the right way, in my opinion.
Has the county considered starting to charge people for county services that when they get out there, they're really not necessary? And you could talk to some of the first responders and even your own ambulance crew, frequent flyers or whatever you want to call. I mean, we've all been on calls where it was just, hey, come take my temperature so I feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And they had no intention of getting in the ambulance or going to the hospital. And I don't know how you assess those people. I could probably assess them because I've been on many of the calls, but I know other counties do charge for that service. Mm-hmm. Now, how they collect, don't ask me, but they do charge for it. Not every person that calls the ambulance, but only the ones that abuse the services. So my question is, are y'all considering that at all?
We haven't discussed that. I mean, we've discussed it briefly from a staff perspective with individual commissioners on maybe some fire services of what that might look like. Sometimes there's insurance proceeds that might be able to be recouped, for example, that occurs in some other municipalities and maybe counties. So we've just had very preliminary discussions on that. But that's something we can look at from an EMS
I would like
perspective.
the assessment, the people that do the assessment to look at it, because I'm sure they've run across it where ambulance services do charge. I think it would be important to have it in the study.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how many calls are reduced because of that.
And that's part of the study. They compare not only our neighbors and other folks that are like us, but just what's being done in other parts of the state and so forth as comparison to what we're doing and what might be appropriate for us to have other types of a structure, a revenue structure.
Under this ordinance, would it be correct to say the county commissioners would have control whether to exempt or not exempt property owners within the city limits?
I think that would be correct. Would you agree with that? I believe so. Yes, sir.
That would be out of our control.
Oh, out of our control. Yes.
But would the study look at that of what properties by law can be exempt and what?
Right, but that would be part of this. I mean, I think they would have control over it, but again, I don't think it would be done in a vacuum. That's the whole reason that we want to have the study, and for everybody to look at it and give their input. So various different MSBUs. I know we just did, like for solid waste MSBU, I think it was this past year, we always exempted churches and non-for-profit, and we levied them this last year, and it wasn't very popular. But we did do that with our solid waste MSBU. While other MSBUs may be exempt still for other services, for solid waste we felt like was a little different. And maybe you could argue or not to get into that conversation right now, but solid waste, they get a service, right? So garbage is picked up and so they should pay for that service. So, you may or may not argue that based on different types of properties. And right now the structure, to your point of the $1,000, there's a maximum. So it's those kind of properties are per square foot, not to exceed X amount based on that category. So that's why that's like that. And that probably does need to be relooked at for obvious reasons. And so when all those adjustments are made, then, adjustments are made on the other end as well to make it more equitable for everyone.
So, yes, sir.
Mayor, the assessments for EMS are a little more tricky than they are for fire. Fire has been upheld throughout the state of Florida in a lot of assessment programs. However, EMS charges, the Florida Supreme Court in 2002 said you can't do them. There's no specific benefit to the property, it's benefits to persons. However, in 2002, the legislature came back and said, okay, we're gonna authorize them, even though the Supreme Court said that. Now, when they did that, however, they did it only for rural areas of opportunity. Rural areas of opportunity were first passed under, I believe, Governor Scott, and then they've been continued. But that designation expires on June 27th, 2021. Unless extended again by the governor, they may lose their ability to impose this at all on June 27th, 2021. So that's another consideration. So I think that makes the study more important to establish a specific benefit to properties if you can do that. So I think the study for the EMS imposition is really, really even more important than it is for the fire. And I'd recommend that you take a thorough look at that study before you proceed ahead with this.
So, does that date typically roll every year, or with the governor's?
It's been extended at 5-year increments.
Since when?
Since
2010 is when Governor Scott.
2011, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe. So we don't know. We don't know what the governor will do on that, one way or the other. Unless you have an insight on that.
And I did want to mention, I appreciate Gary clarifying it because he shared that with me, and I know he's been in communication with the county attorney on this, and he's drafted your ordinance. And I think it's significant that what Jennifer shared, that, and I believe that to be the case with all of the collaborative efforts we've got going on with the county, that the county commissioners are going to heed your concerns and your considerations once the results of the study are known and shared with us. And if we allow them, by your action tonight, to proceed and have at least that this board is willing to consent, at least for the first year, then hopefully they would heed it, as Jennifer said, and not perpetuate something that you have the option of withdrawing your consent after the first year. I think that would be detrimental, and I'd hate to see us go that path. I hope we can see a study result that either is adopted or rejected by the county commission that's fair to all concerned, and that the city feels good about it. And so I'll stop with that.
Any other comments, questions?
Well, I think she needs to have some direction as to, if we're not going to approve it, as to whether the rest of the commissioners are in favor of supporting the study.
We also have to have public comments.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it. If not, don't waste our time and money, which I would agree.
I disagree. Yeah, I would say no. My position is I'm not in favor of the ordinance. Is it ordinance tonight? Mm-hmm. But I would be in favor of a study, and I'm not opposed to it necessarily. I just want to see the information first. How do you feel?
No, that's why I asked so many questions about it, and how quickly we could get it done. And if even, I know $30,000, is an investment in making a decision, but I would hope that CARES Act funding could cover some of that, because to me, it's part of the health care. I mean, and we're going to have, when people aren't feeling well, they're going to call for an ambulance if they can't get to the hospital on their own. And so I think it's important to look at all the aspects, whether it's the city limits or outside the city limits. I'd like to see that report.
I don't mind moving forward. I think the commission, the county commission, if we had a huge problem with it, I mean, I don't think if we just absolutely voted not to move forward, even if it's after May 1st, I mean, we've got 2 or 3 commissioners over here we vote for, and I think they would honor our request. I think it's good to put EMS in an MSBU. I think it's, the public safety, we all use the service. Well, hopefully we don't all have to use the service, but it's available to everyone. I would be in favor of moving forward with the ordinance. I do want to see the study, obviously, but that's kind of where I'm sitting on it.
I'd be open to see the study, but as of now, I can't support it for many reasons, but collectively, I can't support it this time, but I would like to see a study. Trying to keep an open mind. I believe citizens of Clewiston voted for us to make these decisions and not hand them over to somebody else personally. That's one thing this does.
The recommendation is to approve the ordinance. And I think the appropriate thing to do is go ahead and move forward with that, see what the vote is, and then have the discussion of where we go from there.
On first reading, of course.
On first reading.
Just first reading. I would, not to belabor the point, but Commissioner Thompson, your last comment, I believe, if I understood you correctly, the one distinction I would make here, this is a service not provided by the city. It's totally county funded. For the audience, I want to make sure they understood that. It is total county funding. Obviously, we as city taxpayers, our taxpayers, or either MSBU or tax, pay a fair share of that, and that's what this study will determine, those rates if you change the method. But we're currently paying a share of that may or may not be fair based on the ad valorem method of funding it. And I think that's the advantage to the city to see it go forward, is because we may find, we meaning you representing the citizens, may find that there is a more fair and equitable way of providing this essential service than what's being done now. I don't know the outcome, but I did want to make that distinction, different than the fire discussion where we're partners with the county. This one, they are the lead, but the way the mechanics of the law are set up, they cannot proceed to do this decision without consent of LaBelle and Clewiston, as I understand it. And if I understood it correctly, according to their administrator, LaBelle approved it on first reading. Of course, they have yet to take final action either, and I don't know the date of when they'll do that, but it's sometime in January.
So the recommendation is to public comments. I'm sorry, public comments. Do we have anyone that wishes to make a public comment at this time? Hearing no one, recommended the motion is to approve ordinance 2020-06. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Lack of second, motion dies. So how would you like to move forward with this study? What is your input?
I think we've laid that out for her.
I may. So with your consent, just to move forward with the study, we'll proceed with the study, and when we get the results, we'll bring them back to you and we'll review them and go from there.
Are you ready to take formal action on that so Jennifer can present that to the commissioners on the study?
Well, she said that they weren't looking for us to share the cost, so.
Well, I mean,
I think
no,
we've all stated
no,
that we all
I'm
like
just
to see
saying,
the study. I mean, I think that's what we need to do, is see the study
an
first
expression
and
of
then
a formal expression. I think the attorney, I'll defer to him on what he.
Well, they don't need our approval to do the study. If you would like to say you encourage them to do study, you certainly can, but you're not obligated to.
Well, just to show that we are, I'll make a motion to show the support for the county to do a study for EMS for the entire county and to see how it works out with the specific numbers and some of the comments that were made here tonight to incorporate those in there.
Absolutely.
We have a motion by Commissioner Gardner to move forward with this study. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner McGahey. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
And thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you. Merry Christmas,
coming.
Jennifer.
And Ms. Davis, I just wanted to say the amount of work that you and Mr. Martin have done collectively and the working relationship that you're developing, I truly appreciate. Thank you, both of you, very, very much. Next item agenda is Resolution 2020-87. 2020-87, the history is it approved City of Clewiston purchase order number 22048 authorizing the purchase of 120 GE Evolve LED Series high output streetlight fixtures and the total amount of $26,928 from Gresco Utility Supply, Inc. The city issued a request for quote on the ERC purchasing platform. We received quotes from 4 vendors. Vendor Gresco submitted the lowest bid meeting our specifications. The bid tabulation is included in our agenda packet.
I move the authorization.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Thompson, second by Commissioner Pittman. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
I'd like to point out too, this is all reimbursed by the FMPA.
FMPA. Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes,
can
sir.
I interject here and ask the commission's consideration for doing the attorney-client session next? We have an attorney in the audience that's been
Yes, sir.
waiting patiently for this, and I wouldn't want to put them through all of our comments and the reports.
Not a
so
problem,
far.
sir. So
That
at
would
this
be
time,
all possible.
we're going to adjourn to have a meeting with our city attorney that is in the shade, correct?
Yes, Madam Mayor, at the last meeting, I requested that you all schedule what's referred to as a shade meeting under the Sunshine Law, which allows you to discuss with your attorneys ongoing litigation. We have a court reporter in Mr. Martin's office so that we will be able to record that meeting. All of you will be present, I'll be present, Mr. Martin will be there, and Kyle Dudek will be there. And when we're done with the meeting, we can come back and complete the agenda.
Time is 6:45, and at this time, we'll adjourn.
Good suggestion.
and we will resume our normal scheduled commission meeting. So if you'll turn to old business, are there any questions, any comments on our list of completed projects and what we have ahead of us?
No, but I like the format.
Yes.
So,
Go ahead.
oh, go ahead.
Well, go ahead.
So are we just talking about the old business right now?
Or new, old or new.
Okay.
Did you have something else?
So I had asked at the last meeting, after the meeting, I talked to Randy about, I like the reports that Sherry puts in here, but it's so hard for me to follow where, what percentage was this month in comparison to last month. So I had asked about a check register where we could see the actual checks that are written each month. To me, it's so much easier to see the dollars and where they're going that way. So I'd like to see that every month.
I'm going to meet with finance and discuss the logistics of that, and I'll give you some feedback on that. Hopefully, if it's simple, we'll figure out a way to do it. If that's a consideration of the board, but I'll present back a recommendation on that.
Well, even if the board doesn't want it, I would like to see it myself.
Well, I just want to assess
It's not
the
hard.
practicality of it.
Okay.
Thank you.
And as far as the reports, I like that the permit types, that there's the address on them. It's easier to look at it and see where it's at. But also on the the monthly inspection report, can we add the addresses on there so that we can see those?
And
Where
that's
the
in
finals are at? 'Cause
community
there's-
development on
Yeah.
building inspections. Okay.
Yeah.
On final inspections. Okay.
Right.
All right.
Any other questions or comments on monthly activity reports?
And I appreciate the police department's incident analysis report as well.
Okay.
Would this be the place I'd like us to add a report, give you all something else to do. At Clewiston Animal Control, I'd like to see the citations that are written and the amount that's collected. And also donations. On the campaign trail, I've heard that we received a lot of donations, and some even in cash. I'd like to at least know who's given and how much, and make sure we're sending a thank you note and all that. But I'd like to see that in the report.
Agreed.
Okay.
Hours worked.
And
if we sell, I don't think we sell animals, but if we sell any,
No, we don't. They go to the third-party agencies. But. Okay, I follow you. Should be able to address that.
Hey, Mr. Martin, would you like to share your state of the city with us?
Are you ready for that?
We are.
Well, given the lateness of the hour, I had not intended to read this entire report into the record. I'm sure nobody will object to that, but I did want to make a few comments. It's been my practice, as I said in the cover memo, that I put in the agenda to do this in my tenure as manager in other locations. Given this is the first full year of my service here, I did a brief report last year of certain aspects, but really didn't cover the progress that was perceived because it was less than 6 months that I saw that the city made. But I consider it a worthwhile endeavor from an administrative perspective to go through this. It's time consuming, and it's documenting facts and in cases like this, things that we can look back on and compare. So I hope that the commission shares that vision, that it is a worthwhile thing, and I hope I've heard from a couple of you, and I appreciate the encouragement to continue doing this. But I certainly don't have a crystal ball about the format and whatever. So if you've got suggestions to tweak it, I do see this being a useful document for a number of other uses. I'm occasionally called upon to, just as an example, to speak to civic groups and whatever, and this would be a document that I could pull from on a quick note to share information. It also is helpful, I think, looking ahead to setting and establishing the city goals going forward and objectives. Gives you some perspective, hopefully, in that process, which, as I mentioned, I'm looking forward to getting into that into the new year. So with that overview, I did want to make a couple of points, and I know citizens at home haven't seen this, but it will be posted on our website and other social media platforms for people to read. I wanted to see if there was any tweaking we needed to do, and it's also been sent out in our FYI in its current form for those who are signed up for that, and I encourage anyone who's listening or otherwise citizens that want to be added to that list. We're actively wanting to add as many recipients to that document monthly because it gives insight into a lot of different things. But the other thing is I'd write these, and I don't mean this to be belittling anyone. I try to write them at a level that hopefully they're useful to all people. It doesn't have to be that someone who is greatly well versed in local government, because obviously not everybody is, nor should it be so filled with data and things that you really lose sight of the point. So that's just been my experience. That has been more successful. It's also written as a document that people from afar, completely unfamiliar with Clewiston, that's why I have the introduction the way I do, not just for locals, but for other people who are evaluating our community for a lot of different reasons. So just to give you that insight, that's how I arrive at the way I do this. And it's a work in progress. I'd build on this in future years, obviously trying to not let it grow because it ended up 11 pages. My goal was 8 or 6 to 8. And so it's really hard to do, particularly as active as we've been. And despite the impacts of things we didn't control this year, which were significant, we do a lot of stuff. And I don't imply that, as I note in my disclaimer, this is not intended to be an all-encompassing, if it's not on this list, it wasn't important, nor did it not happen, because I clearly had to make some judgments and try to sum things up and make some comments that don't give it all the information that's likely deserving of some of these topics. But this year, in particular, it's been a challenging year because we had a plan. We were focused on certain things. And what happened? Well, we all know a pandemic that did not affect pretty much everything that goes on in our community and our society. So that's not hopefully ever going to happen, or certainly not going to happen every year, that we're surprised with those kind of things. But that is the reality, that priorities change and things happen that we don't necessarily know and can count on. But overall, we still can have strategic plans and targets for what we need to focus our resources and limited time on. But I do think, just in summary, that in reflecting on this and putting it together, I fell out into 6 categories of the areas of progress. Obviously, COVID-19 enjoyed a considerable amount of the attention, and yet I do see optimism in that regard. I won't rehash all of that, particularly with the emergence of vaccines, that this is not going to be a condition that's going to perpetuate itself to the level it was this year, going into next year, and certainly not beyond the next 6 to 12 months. So I'm really optimistic on that. I hope that all goes as planned, and we will be able to get back to a more normal level, I'll call it a new normal level of operations that won't be so hamstrung and impacted adversely. But on the positive side, there were some things that came out of it that I think are really encouraging, and I note those, particularly with the leadership of your city attorney and the commission's desire to update our plans. We updated our comprehensive plan almost like we knew it was coming in the last quarter of 19, and that really was fortuitous, and I think added a lot to our ability to respond to this unusual year in that regard. We also have dealt with some other documents recently with the county that you'll be seeing in our workshop in January. I won't go through all the details of that with this local mitigation strategy. In working with the county, we're updating that document, which is a 600 to 700 page. I think previously it was like 900 pages that has now been refined to some extent by the county, to the extent that they could under the regulatory requirements of the federal and state government. But you'll be seeing that and asked to consider a resolution forwarding that on to the federal agencies with our consent that it meets the current requirements that the city has in its code and so forth. It's not a legally binding document like most of the others we deal with, but it is a necessary planning document, and the county takes the lead on it, but the cities have to be involved in the process. On the adverse side, we lost some revenue over the last fiscal year and projected into this fiscal year that adversely affects our operations. But on the flip side, noted in the regular meeting earlier that with the CARES dollars reimbursement to us for eligible emergency expenses, emergency management expenses, public safety expenses, we are receiving $890,000. And of late, we have encouraging comments from the county that if there are other dollars, we may be able to squeeze more out before all these funds are obligated and the state of Florida closes the book on it. But we'll keep our ear close to that, and I'll be working with the county as we have for the last several months on that. You've already acted on some of that. As I noted earlier, we'll be bringing additional items to you to act on approval of those items that were listed on a previous, during the budget process on some of those. As far as the other major area that I noted was public safety initiatives and activities. We had a long discussion about some of that tonight, particularly this the eastern portion of the county, the city in a local agreement with the county for providing fire protection in the city as well as outside the city will be coming to you. I've forwarded that draft this week to Gary, and he and I have discussed it, and he'll be doing his review. And then if we have to go back to the county for any tweaking, depending on the timing on that, it's possible we could be presenting that to you in January. If not, I would expect certainly in February you would be seeing the results of our efforts on that. And I would point out that agreement actually was approved originally in 1979. And hasn't been appreciably modified since, except by the actions that were described tonight on the method of funding. And that wasn't installed into the agreement. They didn't modify the agreement to make that change official, if you will. It was just a board action by the Board of County Commissioners by mutual consent with the city. Another big thing there is the use of those CARES dollars to finally upgrade our E91 communication system equipment. We're anticipating that to be in force, installed, and ready to go in January. If the vendor gets all the particulars done and the other things that have to happen, we're anticipating that to be soon resolved. And that's been a high priority for at least 3 to 4 years. Another high priority established by the city was to upgrade the police department facilities to a much safer structure. That has been accomplished, and we closed out the grant on that this past year. I won't go through every one of the items, but just hitting some of the highlights. We talked about the city-county collaboration on the MSBU, so I won't rehash that tonight. We'll see how all that plays out during this year. In terms of the other major category of infrastructure needs, accomplishments, and economic development planning, I'm not going to read all of those. There are a number of initiatives in here. I think one of the most important ones we did was reviving the city's capital improvements program process. We saw tonight a good example of how that's so important to have that information. The board's well aware of it and how that impacts on future budgets and so forth. And also that identified our pursuit of various grants. I'm looking forward to hearing on some of the ones that we're still waiting on, and particularly our joint efforts with the county on our utility grants to serve the Highway 70 corridor, the rest of the money for that force main, and upgrading our wastewater treatment plant. So I won't belabor those. We'll just see how that goes. But we were successful in getting several others approved. I again won't list those. I gave the board a report during the budget hearings and meetings on all of the ones we were having. I'll be updating that periodically and reporting to you our progress, so I won't belabor that tonight. We also, I think, made a major thing when we got the new agreements requests for qualifications from professional engineering firms, and the board approved a new list from the robust number we had apply. We picked 4 firms, and we've accomplished that this year. Now we're set to go on some of these major projects. Now that they have to be divided for inspection and design services, we're in a good position with enough expertise that it won't hold up any projects. And of course, we discussed at length the C-21 bridge project, the need for additional funding, and our efforts with the legislature, so I won't further elaborate on that. In terms of the Ventura project, we have we believe sufficient funding based on the engineer's estimate, much of that grant funding, the rest coming from our annual appropriation for paving and resurfacing. And so we're looking forward to this year. We have all the permits, we have the design. We're looking forward to bidding that and coming to the board with an actual award. In the area of water and sewer, we had good success with grant and zero interest loan funds to do improvements in our inflow and infiltration. I think that's a major competitively bid and completed project that was funded by those dollars. And we also were able to do things with generators and so forth from another grant that was previously approved. We finished most of that up this year. And these meet our requirements of the consent order that was agreed upon by the city with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection back in 18. So we made major headways on that, and depending on what happens with some of our grant requests, hopefully we'll knock out and be able to close that consent order in the near term. We also looked at grant applications in other utility areas this year. I won't mention all of those, but in electric, trying to mitigate our exposures to things that would add resiliency to our system. We also been working hard all year on an advanced metering infrastructure program. We'll be getting the proposals and bids in January and working through those and coming to the board early in the new year with feedback on that and hopefully a bid award, and then begin the process of constructing that system before sometime during 21. Again, I don't want to belabor this too long, but we did make some other major headways this year in environmental items. Are working with things like the Army Corps of Engineers on next steps on their converting this septic to sewer project with them. We'll see how all that plays out in the new year. We got grants for things like safe route to school, sidewalk construction, and so on. Worked on various other things that you have in the report, and the public will be able to see those. The fourth area is community development, redevelopment areas, and regulatory reform and code enforcement. I think this was the area that was most adversely affected in terms of services and goals that we had hoped for. by COVID because of its limitations on in-person meetings and things. We did make some progress and we'll continue to work on that. But I am committed from management's perspective to pursuing these priorities in 21 as the board has given me feedback to try to complete our regulatory development and tool updates to our ordinances and our plans to reflect that priority. We did see progress with the CRA and additional funding, some of the state grant funding to upgrade the highway corridor in appearance with the palm tree planting. We got planning assistance for our 27 corridor vision plan that you'll be seeing the evidence of in the January, February timeframe from the state and their consultant on their dime. We got a grant and we'll be working with the Southwest Florida Regional Planning Council for the boating improvement grant to work on our master plan for the lakefront area this year. We also had approval of plan unit development on U.S. sugar-owned property that I think has great potential and impact on our community. Housing to me is other than the infill we had a bit of this year, some of it's still under construction, is an area that this PUD and future development is a great need for the city, which will in turn positively impact on new commercial, like the Hampton Inn project, which I didn't specifically list, but that kind of development is where the housing numbers as those proceed are going to have a very positive impact, I think, on our qualification under criteria that many of the commercial development type interests that we see in sister cities and around the state and region will start taking a much more serious look at Clewiston and putting in one of their franchises or one of their facilities. I won't read it, but the environmental regulatory for Lake O and ordinance things we did with state compliance with stormwater and the B maps, all of that is important, and the important things that we had to check the boxes on some things that'll hopefully pay dividends going in the future. Next area is a really important one. I think we had major accomplishment, and that was physical management, compliance, and reporting. You all have well aware of what we've been able to do there. I think we made great progress in our reserves activity. I would like to point out that I probably should have been more specific. The condition I described of taking its toll on our financials really where our reserves were depleted was in the area of our enterprise funds in particular. Our general fund has stayed pretty consistent. It has not been as depleted as the enterprise funds, but it's certainly not where we want it to be, in my opinion. And yet, some of the things we've already done are already seeing a positive impact on that. But the enterprise funds, you did make the hard decisions as a board and approved after studies, independent and in-house, on all the utilities and our enterprise funds. We made the necessary changes after more than a decade in almost every case with no changes in those fees and rate structure. I think we made some actions that will really get us in a much better place over the next couple of years as those things take place. So I really commend the board for that. Also, establishing the private sector advisory committee on our auditor selection, I think, was a major positive decision. We procured the services of a highly experienced municipal accounting and financial management firm. We've already seen the benefits of that in terms of our auditing process. Finance has followed suit with updating some of our procedures, and we're talking tonight about further tweaking some of our reporting. Now that we've accomplished this, we were able to eliminate some of the past audit findings out of the audit and that had plagued the city for some time. So I'm most excited and pleased with that, and I really feel good about our position going forward with regard to being able to in-house do the proper financial assessment and analysis that the finance department has shown us they're capable of this year during our budget process. Lastly, intergovernmental cooperation, some comments were made earlier. I will just summarize it by saying counties, neighboring cities, federal and state and regional agencies, and our private sector partners, all, I think we made great strides this year. And one thing I would note, I read this thing and I really thought that I went through it without a single I, the letter I. But I made a mistake. I left one in there when I attributed the progress thus far to improved communication efforts. I had intentionally tried to write it without any I's because it's a team effort. You're part of the team, the department heads, the staff, who I'm very proud of, are part of the team, the city attorney, all other agencies we work with, and not nearly all of this could have been done. We could have done some things, but very little of it would have been accomplished without that approach. And so I'm really proud of that, and thank you for your part in that and giving us the tools and the support we needed to make it happen. I'm going to be really brief on the prognosis. Looking ahead to 21, I encourage everyone to read that. A lot of good stuff in there. I commented a little bit on a brighter future I see with regard to the COVID-19 virus and so forth. Some of the things we've already talked about tonight on projects, but I really see this being a good list for us to build on and work on for the year. And I like, again, I won't read all of those, but I want to conclude by just saying it's all a team effort. And I'm really glad that we were able to do it in terms of some of the specific recommendations and achievements and what I anticipate set up for the new year. I really believe we're getting close to getting our house in order, as I mentioned in the report. And I'm very optimistic that 21 and beyond will realize our short-term goals and objectives and build a sustainable environment overall for community advancement into the future. I thank you for your allowing me the time to do this. I'll plan on doing this as hopefully earlier and as an annual ritual. And again, I'm planning on getting this out there to as many people as possible so that we can start with this template and move into a better. So I do encourage you to give me your individual feedback or collectively tonight if you want me to see it go in a different direction. But thank you.
Thank you.
Happy New Year. Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Mr. Martin.
Yeah.
Mr.
Good job.
Brandenburg, comments?
Thank you.
Commissioner McGahey?
I think that your report was well written, Randy, and I thank you for all the hard work and leadership that you give to us. When you say that you attribute the good relations, I'm sometimes rough around the edges, so I appreciate that you help smooth me out. It's not intended, but sometimes comes across that way. But I think you did a good job in summarizing where we're at and where we want to go. And I look forward to another year with you.
Me too.
Commissioner Gardner?
Yes, thank you. I just want to wish the Clewiston community a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. But it would be remiss of me not to say thank you to all the essential workers. You know, our Clewiston Police Department, our healthcare workers, our first responders, our city employees, the county employees, all of those at the schools. That just tough year, unprecedented year. The grocery store workers who are there every day helping us, the restaurant workers when we had only takeout food, just overall, the pharmacies, all the essential workers. And as we look at our community as a community of essential workers, to me, our farmers and what they did during this time, helping to feed so many. And I'm just proud of our community. I'm proud of who we are as a farming and fishing town. And I look forward to 2021. And I just wanted to say, shout out to all the essential workers that did so much this past year. It was amazing. And so proud to be here.
Thank you. Commissioner Thompson?
I'm glad to see the accomplishments the city's made this year, and really excited, looking forward to 2021. And I think it would be cutting the meeting short if we didn't acknowledge and thank the hard work of Commissioner Gardner. We appreciate your service.
I'm honored.
You've represented the
Thank
city
you.
very well. I know you put 100% in it, and we thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
1,000%. Mr. Pittman?
Yeah, I can echo those same words. Whole city staff and city manager have done a wonderful job. I do want to add one more task to something to review in the upcoming meetings is our personnel policy. I think it just needs to be updated. This is the main thing. I know we've got some with social media so prevalent these days, and which we do have some of that in our policy, but I think that needs to be updated. I should have mentioned it earlier when we were talking about the reports, but if we could put that on the to-do list, and nothing urgent, I don't think, but just something moving forward. But I also want to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and just so appreciative to be able to serve on this commission for the next few years with you guys, and I know we're going to get a lot accomplished and head in a positive direction.
Amen.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to extend the meeting. It's been lengthy, but I would like to discuss something and maybe put it on the agenda, give everybody a while to think about it. Ever since the passing of Bubba Raymer, I've thought how we can recognize him and his efforts, everything he's done for the kids here in town. And I toured the CPAC building a while back, and the ladies were showing me what they did, and one thing that kept coming up was Bubba, how he emceed all their events, as he did many other events here with the kids. And I would like to name that building after Bubba Raymer.
We could have a discussion about that because I had the same thought about the park in Trinidad. So there's something out there that could have his name on it as recognition.
Absolutely.
He did a dang good job at recreation. So I want to make sure. I agree.
So something to think about. Maybe we can get it on the agenda next month.
I say the same, city family, thank you for what you do every day, and especially over the past year. As you go to visit your families for Christmas, remember to wear a mask, wash your hands when you're out there, please. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and you know who made Christmas possible. He's the reason. I think it's time to go home, people. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion and a second by Thompson. Meeting is adjourned.
See you next year.
When are you leaving?